Hey, welcome to episode 125 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording July the 25th, 2021. My name is Eric, host of the show based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and of course, computer geek. As a first responder, I witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events and started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
My name is Ian, and I live on Vancouver Island. I'm a student preparedness target shooter, and my farm is designated mediocre handyman.
I'm Jeff, based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, soon-to-be ham radio operator, and general overall handyman.
And we'll have Scott joining us here shortly once he gets his tech stuff sorted out.
Yeah, I guess got to get those hamsters running a little faster or something.
Yeah.
All right, want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air? You can buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. We also want your feedback, good or bad, or just if there's a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some intensely low pressure content for you in this episode. Oh yeah, 125, the dad jokes still going strong.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're going to start off with some preparedness related news articles. Well, you know what we've done for our preparedness since the last episode. Then we're going to get into the main topic, tornado awareness and possibly Sharknadoes and Fire-Nadoes. There's all kinds of fun coming at you tonight.
Here's hoping.
Let's move into the news, shall we?
Alrighty, I got one from, let's see here, at blogto.com, and it says, Premier Doug Ford promises that he is 99% sure there will never be another lockdown in Ontario. Sure, Doug. Does anybody actually believe that?
I'll believe it when it happens.
Okay, sure, yeah. Usually it's the exact opposite of what you hear in the headlines anyways, but that's a pretty bold statement coming from a politician when every other, I guess, jurisdiction around the world seems to be going back into another lockdown during their cold season, like Australia and stuff right now. But anyway, well, here's hoping he's correct.
99%. He's pretty darn sure.
So what he's saying is there's a chance. It's kind of like Dumb and Dumber there, you know. So there's a 1% chance there will be another lockdown, I guess. Anyway, the second one I had, completely unrelated to the first news story. Department of Homeland Security is now offering a course for people that are in law enforcement or various governments to take that will teach them how to quarantine unvaccinated rural Americans. So they're planning on rural, basically quarantining of large populations and wide areas. Just in time.
Well then, in time for a 99% sure there's no other lockdowns.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I got the links in the show notes there for people to read. But yeah, very interesting in the fact that kind of two opposing ideas there.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like I said, hopefully the 99% is correct and we don't have to see another lockdown, because I certainly don't want to see one.
Yeah.
We've got Denny in the live chat here, finally making it out to a live show. So welcome and glad you could make it.
Oh.
So I've got a news article here in regards to air quality statement issued as the wildfire smoke returns to Eastern Ontario. So I noticed that this morning waking up, there's definitely a haze in the air, and we're starting to see the smoke from the wildfires that are happening. And I looked at a map, and there's a lot of wildfires happening in Ontario right now. I didn't realize there were so many. There's a ton. So
are they all?
I think they've evacuated 4 or 5 northern reserves, totally evacuated them right out.
Yep.
Is it all like north of the French River type of thing, or is there some in southern Ontario as well?
I think most are north of the French River.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure that there's any south of it.
I don't think there's anything south.
Yeah.
I was trying to make a joke. Maybe if the winds were coming from the south, maybe it's just Toronto blowing their pollution up. But I guess it's pretty serious. So
yeah, it's a different color.
Yeah.
Fair. Yeah, so it's a green smog versus like a white fire smoke. So, but it's there's a lot. I guess they brought a bunch of firefighters from Mexico in to help fight everything, and it's they're starting to do the whole relief thing. So it's getting rough. But we're starting to see the smoke down this way. So
yeah, it's funny because we've got tons of fires happening over here as well. But I'm luckily upwind of it all. Like the prevailing winds are westerly, so you can't get much further west than myself. So we're actually like clear skies and decent weather. And I guess, but you go like 50, 60 miles to the east, and it's just, almost 0 in fog, or not fog, in smoke, and it's just like insane. And I guess, Carmen, one of our future guests here, she was just telling me that I guess they're smoked out in their valley too, in the central interior. So yeah, not good in a lot of places.
Well, Mailman in the live chat here says sorry about the smoke. He had to start his wood stove. So
well, these things happen.
yeah, it does. Yep, it is what it is.
Yeah. So I've got a news article here, but before I make a comment, just I'll do the usual because I don't want anybody tearing into me later. I am not a COVID denier. I'm not an anti-masker. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, whatever. I just have some questions about how things have happened or been reported or whatever. So this is a link to an article directly from the Centers for Disease Control in the United States. And it basically talks about changes that are coming to the COVID PCR testing. So basically, as of the end of the year, they're going to withdraw the emergency use authorization for the present PCR test, and they're just kind of letting the companies know about that. But funny that, and one of the things that caught me is I've always questioned, like I said, COVID is real, but what happened to flu? What happened to, influenza? We all of a sudden went from thousands of deaths a year to 0. And that just didn't make sense to me. So anyways, in this document where they're talking about alerting the companies, they say, that the CDC recommends clinical laboratories and testing sites that have been using their test begin their transition to another FDA-authorized COVID-19 test. The CDC encourages laboratories to consider adoption of a multiplexed method that can facilitate, here's the key part, detection and differentiation of the SARS-CoV-2 and influenza virus. So, sorry, folks, everybody who attacked me when I said, what happened to the flu, what happened to, and they're like, well, it's because we're wearing a mask and we're washing our hands. No, it's because the CDC's admitted the test can't tell. It'll give you a positive, but it can't tell you whether it's influenza or COVID. So of course, to the government and everybody else, well, then it has to be COVID. So it'll be interesting to see after the end of the year what happens to some of those numbers. And, I'm speculating about what may or may not kind of never make the media. But anyways, they put it out there, and it is what it is. I think the test is ridiculous, but that's just my opinion.
Well, it's interesting. They went from a simplex to recommending a duplex method of detection, right? And like you said, they can't differentiate between one or the other or both. And so, yeah, that was a little bit of an anomaly seeing 0 flu cases last year. So very, very interesting to see this year. I bet you'll just be without much fanfare. They'll just have a return of the regular flu season, and that'll be that.
But 99% sure there's going to be no lockdowns.
99% sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Scott, you got any news for us?
No. Did I miss anything about carbon monoxide?
You blew
31
it.
seconds in.
Give it time. Give it time.
Oh, Scott, really?
Well, you're just in time to tell us what you've done lately for prep, Scott. So go for it.
Yeah. Now you got your pigeons all lined up.
I have had a busy week. So on Sunday, last podcast, after we talked about those tornadoes in Barrie, come Monday, we have a crazy intense storm here, rain you can't see through, and uncomfortable large amounts of lightning. And we had about 50 plus trees broken. Some of them, the whole root ball is torn out. Other broken 10, 15, 20 feet up the trunk. It was really quite impressive. I'm not entirely sure if it counts as a microburst or a downburst, but there was a whole lot of damage. Thankfully, there's no apparent damage to the house, so that's good. That being said, the wire that carries my connection goes through one of the root balls and was pulled as tight as guitar strings. That might explain why my connection is a little loud today. Good news, I had to chainsaw a whole bunch of firewood. Caulked a leaky window that the storm showed. I had also planted some potatoes in a back field just to try and let go wild and see what happened. They were dug up and full of bugs, so oh well, but fun to try. On the fun side, I did do more canning and made some raspberry jam this time. So that worked out well.
Very nice.
And I just did some food prep. I was down at my mom's trailer last week and basically took a whole cooler full of already prepped food, so I didn't have to cook down there. So I just replenished everything that I used and rotated my fuel stock.
Very nice. So for myself, purchased a G5 RV antenna off of Amateur Radio Swap Facebook page there. So got a good deal on it. Couldn't say no, and was looking for something to set up here and play around with. So want to make some improvements to my HF abilities. Started canning. So did some blueberry jam. We took the little guy out berry picking the other day, and we got the smallest thing of blueberries they had was not small. So we came home with a lot of blueberries, but I made a whole bunch of jam out of it, but we still have a lot left. So started building my portable ham box. So purchased a battery for it. And I'm just going to do it in small stages of buying bits and pieces for it as I go. So I grabbed a little 12 volt, 15 amp hour Mighty Max battery. So it's a sealed lead acid battery. And that's going to be running everything. And as I free up a few more funds, I will purchase the additional things to put in the box. But I figured power is important. I'll start there.
Awesome. Actually, yeah, I got a bunch of stuff out of order. I just can't wait for it to show up from AliExpress. But that could be like 3 days to 5 months for it to show up. But
And here's the battery here if anybody's curious. So, yeah, nothing crazy, but
quick question there. The blueberries, Berry Hill Farms.
haha, how'd you know?
I took my kids there a bunch of times too.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's the hay rides make it, and the little chickens chasing the hay wagon and everything else. Yeah,
Yep.
awesome. Actually, that's what got us into chickens, believe it or not, was watching those chickens chase the trailer.
Look at that.
And we thought it was like a miniature Jurassic Park type of thing.
Yep.
And yeah, it was pretty awesome. So,
Very
all
nice.
right, you guys want to take a drink while I do this?
We're just going to mute you and carry on with the show is what we're going to do.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. I'll just start talking then. As for myself, here we go. So obviously last week I missed the show. So first of all, apologies to the listeners. Actually had a legit emergency come up mid-show. It was kind of amazing. So I'll get back to that in a second. But let's see here. I serviced the Big Jenny. So I had to rotate the gas in the tank, which had been sitting in the tank for probably 6 months. So it was time to just drain it completely and start over. Ended up needing to charge the battery, do a quick test run. And during the test run, the ignition switch broke, which runs the starter, turns it on and off, just like a car. So believe it or not, I tried a local machine shop, for lack of a better term, like a small engine shop, and they just kind of laughed at me and mentioned something about Chinesium or something anyway. And so yeah, I contacted Champion Canada in Burlington, Ontario, and believe it or not, within an hour of me doing an online purchase, they had it shipped. They had a tracking number to me. It arrived like 3 days later, all the way over from Ontario. Already got it installed in the generator. Like fantastic, and it was cheap, like crazy cheap. So I think even their shipping was $8 to cross the country. Like, wow.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Anyway, so the farm tractor, also known as the quad, had to do an oil change. I just discovered like 5 minutes ago before the show started that I don't know, I need to do something. I got a little oil leak going on. I don't know if it's the filter or the bottom plug, but I haven't even unpacked it off the truck yet today. So anyways, got to deal with an oil leak there. But I did fix the start issue thanks to the Island Mentor. I couldn't get the thing to start regularly. I thought it was the battery kept on going or something, but it turns out that the starter motor itself was kind of messed up. And I could start dropping terms like commutator and brushes and stuff like that. But really, I'm just talking out of my ass. I don't really know what I'm talking about. So I'll leave that one alone. Did the Mark Petroni show, I guess, about a week ago. It was the last Thursday air. So that was pretty cool. He once again, he gave me like half an hour to talk about prepping on the radio. So fantastic guy. And I think he's interested too. Like he's just, I think he wants to get the word out for people.
Oh, 100% he's interested. Yeah.
Yeah. See here. Mylared up some rice and lentils we had bought from Costco. So just want to put those in long-term storage. As of this morning, I finished the Finnish Reserve military march that was called the Resual March. Other guys from Patriot Podcast and a bunch of other New Shooter Canada, and I think First Focal Plane Podcast all kind of tried to participate in it. And the whole idea is you're supposed to do at least 10 kilometers over 4 days. Over 40 kilometers over the 4 days gets you a little bit of a higher level. And so the guys from Patriot wanted to do 10, 10, 10, and 25 just to kind of show the Finns what's what. So my daughter, who's back at the house, again, we'll get back to that in a second. She decided to do 10, 10, 10, and 33 this morning just to show up the Patriot podcast guys. So that was good. Anyway, renewed my Ham Radio Club membership. So I'm a full-fledged member of the local Ham Radio Club. Nerd.
I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah. Anyways, but that's good. Good bunch of guys. Let's see here. So as far as bailing last episode, so basically I got a distress code word right in the middle of the show. That's why I had to just drop everything and go. Long story short, daughter got caught up in a domestic situation in her rental apartment, and it required immediate extraction. But I ended up having to utilize my code words. She got to utilize, or I got to utilize the mag, which managed to help pick her up and extract her from the situation as soon as humanly possible after she finished dealing with police and applying first aid. She got to use her first aid course that she had taken as a kid. She ended up using her go bag, which was hidden underneath her bed, and she just grabbed that and went and grabbed all the critical stuff. And then she was also able to use her instant observation skills, like during an emergency, while dealing with police. So fantastic. We were really proud of her. She did all the right things, and everybody gave her a big pat on the back. But unfortunately, that meant she was homeless from then on in. So pulled her back to the island. So she's been on the island for a week again. But food supply is down by 25%, unfortunately for me. But, we'll get over that. But anyways, she found another place. She's going back there in a couple days. So other than that, then I just finished off. I've been putting it off for months. I should have had it done back in May, but I just finally got it done yesterday. Was the chimney sweep. So I got to do a little role playing with the wife. I pretended I was Dick Van Dyke. She pretended she was Julie Andrews. Things got carried away. I ended up sweeping the chimney. Yada yada yada. Anyway, long story short, the fireplace is good to go. All vacuumed up for next year, and I think that is it.
Sure. That was quick.
Pretty sure.
That was 2 weeks worth, right?
Yeah, I can keep going if you want. But
No, that's okay. I'm going to jump into the new segment.
all right,
let's do that.
So we're going to add a new W.A.M segment, our wide area mag. We all love learning things. And while there's some intelligent people around here, present company excluded, there are lots of smart people out there with skills and talents we want to learn from. So we're going to start reaching out to all the listeners. We want to hear from you guys. Feedback at prepperpodcast.ca on topics we're looking to learn more about. Whether experience with something, you don't have to be an expert. Who doesn't love beef jerky? And we'd love to talk about food dehydration. Talking about around the world. I was talking to a friend with South African connection. They take their prep really seriously. So we're going to start reading out some experience with food dehydrator.
We're losing Scott here.
Okay.
So
Scott the robot.
Yeah, Scott the robot. Yeah.
Well, you want to do it, Eric, or I can do it?
Yeah, if you want to run with it, sure.
Okay, so we have a new segment called the Wide Area Mag, or the W.A.M. And basically, he was saying that we all love learning things. And while there's some very intelligent people around here, myself excluded, there are lots of smart people out there with skills and talents greater than ours. So we want to learn from you. So we'd love to hear from you at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. For example, who doesn't love beef jerky? So we'd love to talk about food dehydration. So anybody that wants to talk about food dehydration, open invite. You're welcome to come on anytime. And same thing, we're going to be introducing new topics as we go on, but we want subject matter, I'll say experts, but people that know more than we do about various things. For example, Scott was mentioning that he has a friend with South African connections, and they take their preps very seriously. So we want to hear from preppers around the world. Like we heard we had feedback from Sweden there a couple of weeks ago, and that was fantastic. Love to hear more from that. So please pipe in, and we'd love to have you on the show. So we want to increase the wide area mag. So let's do this.
I think it's going to be fun. With that, shall we move into the main topic?
All right. So I found out that Sharknadoes aren't really a thing, so I guess we can't really talk about them per se tonight.
They are. Look behind me. There's one right there.
Yeah.
It's totally a thing.
I don't know what's actually more depressing, the fact that they made a Sharknado movie, or the fact they made Sharknado sequels. I would have thought that movie would have died on the vine, but anyway.
No, it's terrifying.
Yeah. Then I actually made a joke about Fire-Nadoes, and of course Alan decided to like rain on my parade and actually tell me that's actually a thing. So like, thanks for the nightmare fuel there, Alan. But
yeah, well, ranting about carbon monoxide, of course.
Yeah, carbon monoxide give off, I think would be huge from a Fire-Nado. But
I would think it would be,
we actually, I think we mentioned on a news segment once that somebody actually had a Fire-Nado down in California, but I didn't really take it too seriously. But I guess when you think about it, if there's a bunch of air rushing in and it all meets in the same place, it's going to swirl around and create the same thing as a tornado, but with added fire. So
it's true.
Yeah. Anyway, but first, let's talk about the elephant.
Yeah, it's the extreme heat of the fire. Like you say, draws the air in. The extreme heat rises. It shoots up so fast it actually creates a vortex.
Yeah, it's like an intense low pressure, right? So same idea. Yeah. But anyways, back to the elephant in the room here, which is tornadoes. Why are we talking about tornadoes today? Because having lived there for 13 years, I can honestly say Barrie is Canada's trailer park. And you know what tornadoes and trailer parks are like. Did I say that out loud? So anyways, okay, so in all seriousness, actually, I was looking at CBC News, and I saw on the front page of the CBC News article, there was actually a buddy of mine from work taking a picture of a devastated home. So, of course, I immediately contacted him and his family, made sure he was okay, and it turns out he was just a looky-loo, but he still, it does hit close to home in the fact that, hey, that could have been a buddy of mine that got damaged from a tornado, so it's pretty serious business. And yeah, there was a lot of damage there, so I thought we should talk about it tonight. Did you ever get a final tally from damages and injuries and stuff, Derek?
I heard 11 people injured was the last I heard, and a whole ton of houses just damaged. I haven't heard a final tally yet. Admittedly, I have been watching it too closely in the news, but that's the last I heard.
Yeah, no, that's what I heard too. Was 11 people injured, so luckily no fatalities. It sounds like there were, I believe, 3 or 4 guys that were. So right behind this subdivision is construction, and they, for whatever reason, decided to hunker down in the construction trailer. Not a good idea, and it got demolished and tossed around, but they survived.
Good.
So yeah, one of my ex-coworkers lost her house, serious damage, and so they're going to be out for quite a while. It was not a good scene, but again, everybody survived. You can always rebuild a house. You can't rebuild your life. So,
yep, that's true. Couple things here from Freya. Every parent should teach their kids how to handle emergency situations. Yeah, no, absolutely. I am happy. A lot of what I must have been barking at her for years must have sunk in, so that was good. And I don't think she'll ever admit it, but kids.
Yep.
Anyways, Woodpedal also mentions the fact that he's working in a medical lab right now, and we have had a test that differentiates between the flu reserve. I don't know what that is. RSV. Respiratory syndrome viruses, maybe, and COVID-19. It's a very specific test, and yes, the flu is still out there. So, be interesting to see if they can get that test out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the question would be how many are using that same test, and how many are just using the standard? Yes, it's a positive or negative. So.
Oh yeah, no, I mean the media loves the fear mongerings, right? So they're going to make sure that, and the medical industry thrives. They get more money down in the States by having COVID positive tests. So it's an industry.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, yep. Freya mentions if you're not prepping for a Sharknado, you're not prepping right.
100%.
Yep.
Prep for the worst. Prep for the worst. Hope for the best.
Just because there hasn't been one yet doesn't mean it won't happen.
Oh, it's going to happen.
All right, back to the serious business here. When we start talking Fs, and we're not just talking about swear words, we want to refer to the Fujita scale. And now it's because just like DOS, everything has got to get better. It's the enhanced Fujita scale we're using now. So when we mentioned F5s, F4s, and stuff, it's basically on a scale from 0 to 5. To give you some reference, in Edmonton, where I was actually growing up at the time, we had the F4 hit in 1987, and boy, oh boy, I was on the far side of Edmonton from where it actually hit, and it was pretty noticeable even where I was. It's a big one. In 1985, Barrie again had a F4, same size as the Edmonton one, which at that time, the scale meant that they had to have at least 420 kilometers an hour winds in order to qualify for an F4. So, wow. Barry, no, just do you ever get the feeling that nobody likes you up high there? I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, and now this one here, this tornado, which honestly still looked pretty devastating, was only in EF2, like enhanced Fujita scale 2, which puts us in like 180 to 220 kilometers an hour range, which is still sounds like a hurricane as far as wind speed goes, but very
still
localized.
Stupid fast.
Yeah, it's just very localized, unlike a hurricane. But I mean, still, it's pretty crazy.
Yep.
So I did put a link in the show notes there with the Fujita wind scale from the government of Canada in there, the show notes. But yeah, it's a thing.
It's out on the chat now as well for anybody that wants it.
Right on. So first off, I guess with anything else, unlike most emergencies that come up, you can't say you don't really have warnings with these ones. Like there's a couple of different ways to get warnings. One I want to mention that before Eric touches it is the Environment Canada frequency, which is usually 162.425, available on your bow fangs. Or just anything like the little hand crank radios usually have a weather or Environment Canada link to the frequency. But yeah, you can always get yourself a backup radio, or even now correct me if I'm wrong, there's a cell phone app that will do the same thing, right?
Oh yeah, there's an app for everything now.
Yeah, Emergency Preparedness Canada, I think, puts out an app says that you got a severe weather warning. Yep. I know the Weather Network does the same thing.
Yep, pretty much any weather app that you have on your phone will have the warning built into it, where it'll get the Environment Canada warning sent out to your phone. So it's always handy.
And I guess I'd like a hurricane where they have a few days notice of it coming. Like when a tornado warning or tornado or hazard exists, it's not really like it's happening fast, right? It's like you're talking
very
like,
fast.
Yeah, to develop to almost petered out is like minutes.
Yep.
So this is just me being.
But again, you it's not that you didn't know the severe storm was coming, and I mean. Most of these storms, like you say, a hurricane or whatever, usually the local weather, whatever, is going to tell you 2 days in advance, hey, on Wednesday, we're looking at a pretty serious outbreak coming. You can't say you shouldn't have been at least partially prepared.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, like, it's hard for me to say that in a place that doesn't get them anymore, but I mean, cold rooms, just saying, like, let's talk about those for a second. But put down the camera. Honestly, if you get a weather warning, I think at that point, it's just like, worry less about your social media presence or postings and just head into the shelter. And so I think by the time it starts up and finishes off, it won't be a long time. So, cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to throw out there another thing to keep an eye on is just weather radar. Right, there's apps out there for your phone, and there's websites and such as well, where you can keep an eye on the radar and see for yourself, get a good idea of what's coming in, what's coming your way. There's always ways to look at that, and there's different apps you can do for that as well.
DM Davey mentions the Amber Alert. I think, do they do Amber Alerts for weather as well?
No, it's not an Amber Alert. It's just an emergency alert. So a lot of people confuse them for the same thing. Amber Alert is for missing kids. But it operates in the same fashion, where it's just a page out to mobile devices. It goes over the radio, goes over the TV. Same function, different name.
Right on. And also, let's see here. Wrong one. Denny mentions mobile weather radio, walkie-talkie style, godsend for us. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, any sort of mobile radio, crank radio that you can get that has weather channels, it's awesome. Especially if you're sitting in your cold room, it's nice to get the update on the weather.
Even your FRS radios that you can grab at Canadian Tire or wherever tend to have those frequencies programmed into them. There's just a certain button combination you have to push on them, and then it'll activate that, and it'll pick up the repeater in your area. So they're definitely handy to have because it's going to give you lots of information.
So 2 schools of thought on this. Some guys just want to grab the bug out bag and go, but assuming you don't have time to do so, like, I mean, it'd be great if you just grab your bug out bag, go, and then like run to, I don't know, your mother-in-law's 30 miles down the road. Okay, that's fine. And if you do, make sure you have like a USB stick of a docs with it, including your insurance papers on you to make sure your insurance claim is easier when you get back.
Yep.
As well as videos of your valuables and listings and everything else. But anyways, moving along. If you actually had this discussion with the wife, like there's a couple schools of thought. I mean, you go to the cold room. Every house in Ontario seems to have a cold room, right?
Yep, pretty much.
And of course, you go in there, and it's the only like concrete on all sides, kind of reinforced building, usually underneath a deck or something. So it's got like super duper strong walls and ceiling and everything else. There's a chance, yes, you're going to be sheltered from the storm, but there's a chance you could get stuck in there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess the idea being is much like the old fallout shelters. Yeah, you're going to want to have food, water, the ability to poop in there, maybe a whistle to get some attention if people don't know you're in there,
Yep.
A radio to receive weather reports, but also cell phone to send out signals if you can to let them know you're still alive under there, backup phone charger, a flashlight, the usual stuff. But I guess you might be there for a while. So if you go into the shelter, plan to be there a while.
100%. A couple of other things I've got on my list here for things you might want to have. Hard hats. Things might be falling. You can grab some hard hats. They're not overly expensive to add to your kit. Earplugs, because if that tornado does come through, it's going to be loud. So that might help protect your hearing. Ian, you already touched on pre-event photos of your doomstead and documented serial numbers of any kind of electronic devices. That just helps with the insurance claim down the road to prove that you have the things you claim you have. High visibility vests as well, something so you can be seen. I know we talk a lot about blending in and not being seen, but this is a time where you actually want to be seen. Flashlights, gas shutoff tool, something else. If there's some gas lines damaged in and around your house, you have the ability to turn it off. That can help. And of course, a trauma kit or a little IFAC, because just assume people are going to be hurt.
That's a good point with the hearing protection too, because I was talking to my mom about this a long time ago, and she was saying that like she grew up in rural Saskatchewan, like southeast of Regina, so they actually did have tornadoes there a fair amount, and much like Kansas type of thing. And yeah, she said it sounded like a freight train going by, like it was just that loud.
Yep.
And so yeah, it was just screaming loud. So they'd be in their root cellar, and still they would be like super duper loud on them.
Yeah. So it's kind of my thoughts on at least what kind of kit you should be carrying or having ready.
Yeah. So regardless, Jeff, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I kind of along that line. I mean, like I said, monitor the weather, be ready, don't get caught off guard. Use the duck theory. So it's downstairs, under something strong, in the center of the building, and keep away from windows. I know you guys mentioned most houses have a basement. If you don't, my house doesn't. Find a middle room, get as low as possible, wrap yourself in a heavy blanket for some kind of possible protection. It may or may not help you, but some people say get inside your bathtub and cover yourself up. You mentioned about the room, you get in the room, you can't get out. Keep your cell phone handy or right there so you can call for help if you get trapped under some debris.
Well, the blanket will come in handy too, because not only would it protect you from damage from stuff falling or puncturing stuff or whatever, but also if somebody goes into shock, it's nice to have the blanket too, right?
True.
Yep. True. Yep.
Josh has a good point in the live chat here. For the hard hat, make sure you get one with a side impact rating. Great point.
Would I still be able to sing YMCA?
Questionable. I don't think you can sing it without with the hard hat or without it. So,
okay, fair enough. Awesome. Okay, so one thing I'm just going to mention as well is so you might not be home when this all goes down. Yep. So say if you are at work at Zehrs doing your grocery shopping or whatever, and the tornado hits, you might not have the ability to get back to your house or your subdivision because if tornado hits, not even your house, but like 2 houses down, they're going to block off the subdivision. They're not going to let anybody in because they can be worried about gas and water mains having damage. Even if they're not damaged, they're probably going to shut them down anyway because they're worried about leakages and potentially fire hazards and everything else. Obviously, you could be on the other side of town and still get affected by it in the simple form of a power outage. Yep. That thing rolls through a substation. I'd say a good chunk of any town is going to be in for a world of hurt for the power for at least a few days anyway.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that's usually when it's hot and sticky out too.
Of course.
Yeah. How hot is it there today, by the way?
It's hot enough.
Oh god. Yeah. We're we're still pretty bad. I think we're pushing 30, but oh god. Anyway.
I think it was 29, but the Humidex was up like 35.
What button do I push here to kick Ian out?
Any button you like. I will just go if you want.
No, stick around.
All right. Yeah, the other thing I was just going to mention too, as a side note, if you are going to be living in tornado country, and communications is obviously a problem, especially like, for example, when I'm trying to get a hold of my buddy, I didn't even bother trying to phone because I figured the phone lines would be busy. But I texted him back and forth, made sure we're okay, and but maybe have a long distance alternate location, not just to bug out to if need be, but also for third party comms. So like usually it's easier to phone out of province or out of even out of country than it is to phone within your same town sometimes, depending on how you're working your landlines or cell phones or anything else. So maybe just an idea of having like maybe the mother-in-law who lives in a different province. She can pass messages back and forth if you can't contact each other. Just something that might not be affected by the same communications outage you will be. So just as a thought there, having a wide area mag, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
And that's pretty much all I had. I had another link for getprepared.gc.ca, and I put the link in there that specifically deals with tornadoes. But actually, it's pretty wimpy. There's not a whole lot on there, but it's better than nothing, I suppose.
In live chat now as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I had though for tornadoes.
So I've got a couple of things here on top of all the equipment that you should have. Pre-plan where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. Of course, don't mention it to Jeff because he'll just come here and steal all my stuff. So I'm not going to tell him.
And he's already advertised that. Yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't have advertised it, Jeff. I'm ready for you now.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Practice tornado drills with family members and the kiddos, right? And make it fun because making it fun equals less scary in the actual event. But it's important to practice those things because if you're just going to say, we'll figure it out when the time comes, well, it's almost the same as, practice using your gear that we preach all the time in the show. Just, have some drills, figure out where you're going to go, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. And that way,
Yeah, I forgot to mention actually when the daughter was dealing the first aid there, poor girl had 14 staples in her head afterwards to patch her up. So you imagine the amount of blood floating around. And luckily, by being raised on a farm and taking first aid courses, it turned out to be less of a deal. I thought she was going to be totally devastated by it, but it actually wasn't bad. So practicing ahead of time does make a difference.
Absolutely does.
Yep.
And then we already touched on having a plan if you're not at home, because chances are you're not going to be home when this happens just because that's the way it always works out, right? So have some kind of a backup plan, have an alternate plan for your family members and yourself. If you're not home, if this happens, where do we go? Who do we call? Who do we talk to? What do we do? Read the Survival Medicine Handbook by Dr. Alton. It might be a book club book. So yeah. And it's it gives you a good foundation in how to deal with some medical distress when you don't have a whole lot of options available to you. And if a tornado is coming through and it's a devastating one, it's going to lock up medical resources. It's going to lock up hospitals, and the stuff that's in that book might help you out to at least get you to a hospital or help stabilize yourself or somebody else until help can get to you, because they're going to be overwhelmed. What to look for. This is some other important things, because you're going to want to know what you're dealing with. So like dark greenish clouds, large hail, the obvious, if you see a funnel cloud, if you see one with sharks in it, well, you're done. That's it. 2021 has brought its worst, and just stop and admire it for as long as you can. And
well, that one in Edmonton that I sat through, you nailed it. Dark greenish clouds and bright pink clouds, and definitely unusual. And I mean, considering that's like almost 40 years ago, I still remember it like it was yesterday. So
when I was a kid, we actually at the same camp that my mom has her trailer at. We were there when I was a kid, and that the Woodstock tornado. It's not far from Woodstock, and we were there for that. And like you say, it's something I'll never forget. Like Eric said, it got just dark. Like it was so dark that the night lights were coming on, like that have the sensors. The night lights were coming on, but the funniest part of it was when it was all done and it was gone. You hear the old, usually after a storm, what do you hear? You're hearing the frogs, you're hearing the birds, there was nothing. Like literally the comment of hearing, you could hear a pin drop was absolutely so true. There was no noise whatsoever. There was nothing. Birds weren't chirping, frogs. It was so eerie. Like you say, Ian, it was years ago, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, so I think it's important that you just kind of know what's coming your way, especially if you don't have any kind of early warning system that's been sent out, like that alert that we get on our phones or any kind of alert over radio or television. If you start seeing things like that, it's time to start thinking, well, let's look into our tornado plan here because something bad's coming our way. Speaking of all those other options, weather radar, like I mentioned, the app that I use is called Instant Weather. I think you use it as well, Jeff. They've got a good free app and a paid option as well.
And just a shout out to those guys if you've ever popped into it or listened to it. The guy actually that runs it lives in Barrie, and they called on their they were actually live streaming at the time.
Yep.
And for the Barrie tornado, he called rotation 6 minutes before Environment Canada put out the tornado warning for Barrie. Yep. So anybody that had that app had like an extra 6 minutes to find somewhere to go.
Yeah, and they're fantastic. Their free app gives you access to the weather radar. It's only, I think, about an hour or two of data, but it's still good. And you can upgrade. I think their highest priced one is like $12.99 for the year, and it gives you all kinds of options. But I just run with the free one, and it's done me well, and it's given me all kinds of tips and hints as to what's coming my way. So it's a good one to check out.
Freya mentions to have a plan to help the elderly or disabled neighbors too.
Yep. Good point.
Yeah. Yep. No, they're not just for eating during the apocalypse. They're
no.
No, they honestly, yeah, like just as not just a good neighbor thing, but obviously would they do it for you? Of course. So if you have somebody that's maybe not able to move as fast, maybe they get caught up upstairs during a thing, it never hurts to check on them, and maybe you might be the first person on scene with first aid too. So.
Yep.
And that's actually, before I even forget about that, on the side note, Scott did mention to talk about flying debris and broken glass. So obviously a lot of laceration issues.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a thing for sure. Another tip I had here was just if you're trying to determine the path of the tornado, so if you are able to see it and you're out of your house or whatever, and you're trying to figure out what the best way to go is, you can use a fixed object in the horizon to give you kind of a gauge of what direction it's heading. Chances are you're not going to have time to run. If it's coming at you, it's coming fast, but it might give you a second or two to figure out what direction the thing's going, because it's going to be hard to determine just staring at it. But using the fixed object should help you out. But hopefully you're not ever in that situation, because I wouldn't want to be there.
And if it's not moving and just getting bigger, well, then you got bigger problems.
Yeah, and if there's sharks, well, it's 2021. Yeah. That's my list.
Well, a lot of the stuff I had was covered. Obviously, we've all said it. Monitor the weather. Be ready. Don't get caught off guard. Ian mentioned, if you're out, you may not be able to get back into your house, but remember, if you're in your house, you may not be able to get out. Maybe like you said, if the tornado doesn't touch your house, but it runs directly across the road, that is your only way out, chances are you're going to be there for a few days until the crews can get in. As long as you're not injured, you're going to be pretty far down the list for them to get in and clear out all the debris and clear the down trees and everything else. So make sure that your stocks are up. Make sure you've got food, you've got water, in case like I say, you can't get out or the help can't get in. And I just threw a quick link in there. It's actually, like I said, I don't have a basement, so it's actually something I'm looking at. I'm gonna, like Alan, I'm gonna have to redo my garage in a few years, and I'm looking at possibly putting a small storm shelter under my garage. So there's a company in Toronto there that, believe it or not, sells stealth storm shelters. So they're small, nice. 4 or 5, maybe maximum 6-person shelters. Yep. Obviously, dig a hole under your garage or whatever building, drop it in there, fill it in, build over top of it. Nobody's even going to know it's there.
Except the whole world, because you just told them.
Well,
yeah,
that of course, that's where I'd put the hot tub too. So you can have hot tub parties down there. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And once you get that in, you don't have to come here and steal all my stuff. That's good.
I'm going to steal it anyways, just for
of course, yeah.
I know you are. So Josh in the live chat says this topic is the greatest of timing. He's moving up this way, so most of this will be put into action after the move. So glad we could help you out a bit, Josh.
Well, the one thing about that too, though, is of course a lot of places in Barrie, sandy lake bottom basically is what you're building on. So sump pumps are an issue because the sump pumps have to run continuously to keep the basement from flooding. So if you do shelter in the basement and you do have a power outage, now you got flooding to worry about as well. So keep in mind that's also an issue.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Anyway.
Now the real question is do tornadoes cause carbon monoxide? I know Alan would want to know, but he's not here because he ditched us tonight.
Fire-Nadoes?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Fire-Nadoes, yeah.
Yeah.
Just figured
All right.
I'd add that in there for him.
Yep.
So is
You
it
did.
time to move on to the podcast challenge, guys?
I think it is.
All right. So if you are in Tornado Alley, so basically in Ontario, that kind of runs anywhere, Grand Valley, as they say, all the way over to Barrie, down in southern Ontario, like the deep southwest, London, Chatham, that area that seems to get a lot of them. Put some basics in a cold room or some other room and have something down in your storm cellar if you get to be ready and prepared.
Yeah, but tornado country, of course, also applies to the entire prairies south of the North Saskatchewan River. So I mean, like that's a good swath of the country as well. Like they get tons of them over there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And Jeff, do you know the name of that storm cellar place? There's a couple of people asking in the live chat.
Yeah, I put it in there. It's called so the website. It's KI, so Kilo India KI Canada, one word .com, and then /stealth/shelters.
Perfect. I got it in the show or in the live chat here now.
Okay. Yep. And yeah, they've got all kinds. Like I say, they've got all kinds of different size ones, and it's something I'm looking at. So,
It's a smart idea.
Yeah.
Mainly to keep you away from my place. I like my things.
Keep them locked in there anyway.
Oh, I didn't think about that. We could just lock them in there. Yeah, it's true.
Just drive a truck over top of the entrance or something.
That's good point.
Yeah.
I like it.
and
All
Mailman made a nice little comment there. In the spirit of the Olympics and the tornadoes, practice the 50-meter dash.
Yeah.
Although I'm thinking 50 meters isn't going to get you out of the way, but
Nope.
when all else fails, feet don't fail me.
Yep, you can try. All right, we have some upcoming events.
Well, it's the standard ops until we hear anything different, but Maple Seed events are still on the go since COVID restrictions have been relaxed. Definitely in BC and Alberta, and I do believe Ontario's actually opened up some extra ones in Stittsville, and I can't remember one other range, I think. But so they are out there. MapleSeedRifleman.com/events. Sign up, make yourself a better shooter.
Maybe shoot at the tornadoes. Oh, that's the Americans. Never mind.
When in doubt, yeah.
Yep. We got Deal of the Week.
Brought to you by Better Andrew from the Canadian Patriot Podcast. It is a 4-pack of brake cleaner aerosol for $4.97 at Costco, which is awesome. Usually it's like $4.97 a piece everywhere else. So they are good for cleaning your brakes and cosmoline for reasons.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah. So on redflagdeals.com is the link, but also just go check out Costco.ca. I'm sure you're gonna see the deal there as well.
Links in the live chat as well.
Right on.
All right, we'll move into some shout outs. So a quick shout out to listener Darren, still continuing with the completion marathon of podcast challenges. The emails are just flying in from him. Anything from fire extinguishers, vehicle equipment, flooding prevention, cast iron implementations, you name it, he's looking after it. So Jeff, head his way, not my way.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Like when I saw those emails, I was like, "Way to go, Darren!"
Yeah.
Like he's just slaying it. So
it's awesome.
Yeah,
and he's doing it well too.
Maybe we should get him on here every week to talk about what he's done lately for preps.
I think we should.
Double the show.
You might have some competition there, Ian.
Yeah, be perfect. I like that. It's healthy.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And as for myself, I got a shout out for the champion generator people. Once again, like they always say, champion jennies are cheap and loud, obnoxious, and everything else. But hey, they sell them everywhere. They are inexpensive. But my goodness, their website is fantastic. Their shipping is fast, and they, unlike most generator suppliers, they actually have parts available, especially with the supply crunches nowadays. So I can't say enough about them. So kudos to the Canadian distributor for Champion Jenny.
Nice.
So
All right. We move into email and iTunes reviews.
Okay, I guess I'll cover this one. We got one from John. It's short and sweet. It says, how are y'all planning to preserve ice hockey in the face of global warming? Continue your excellent podcast.
It's a great question.
Roller skate hockey.
Yeah, just gonna have to do that. Don't need ice for it.
Yeah, or we just like attach like razor blades to hockey sticks and make the pucks flaming or something. I don't know.
We could do that, yeah.
Improvise,
Or-
adapt, overcome, man.
I guess the arenas kind of keep the ice cold in the summer, so I guess it works.
Honestly,
global warming.
if Dubai can have a skating rink and a ski hill indoors, I'm sure we can too.
Yep, but it's an important thing to think about because if we lose hockey, well, that'd just be terrible.
Fun fact: more people in Canada shoot competitively and for sport than play golf or play hockey in Canada.
Well, you just ruined that stereotype.
Yep.
Well, with that, I'll bring episode 125 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Submit a review. It helps other people find us, and you can even listen while you're playing hockey.
All right. We record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you alerts when we're going live.
All right,
And if
everybody-
you want to contact me, I can be reached just at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, on.
Doing the gray man thing.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. If you want to get a hold of Ian, you can reach me directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com and on Gab and Odyssey at The Island Retreat. You can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast on iTunes, YouTube, and in the Discord group called, Canadian Patriot Podcast. Email us if you want an invite. It's a fun group. There's probably about 80 of us now chatting back and forth and talking about our marches and everything else. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society makes me realize there's no place like home.
Oh,
Well done.
Yeah.
Please check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there on the live chat while purchasing some prepper gear. You can email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us this evening. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
And keep learning.